This week, the legislature faces its first deadline, and there will be a lot of committee votes this week and some hearings on some interesting bills. I'm Todd Myers, Vice President for Research at the Washington Policy Center, and this is the legislative update for the week of February 16th. Friday is cutoff for bills in policy committees, and this means that policy bills, as opposed to budget and fiscal bills, must be voted out of committee this week or they're dead. Now, there's a loophole. Any bill that is necessary to implement the budget and has a fiscal impact, i.e. that costs money, can be revived. In the words of Miracle Max from The Princess Bride, they're only mostly dead. If legislative leadership has true love for them, they can still be brought back to life. But if a bill doesn't get out of committee this week, their chances of surviving go down. So, start off with two bills that undermine Washington's status as a tech leader are being heard early this week. On Monday, in Senate Labor and Commerce, SB 5422 would prevent public agencies from using AI to run more efficiently without the approval of government unions. On Tuesday, in the House Finance Committee, HB 1517 would add a $2 tax for every smart wireless device, including, quote, smartphones, laptop computers, tablets, wearable devices, smart speakers, gaming consoles, smart gyms, and smart televisions. This would be a $150 million tax increase over the next 4 years. Also on Tuesday, the House State Government and Tribal Relations Committee will hear HB 1938, which would create the Washington State Flag Redesign Committee. The bill says, quote, the current flag, though historically significant, does not resonate with the state's evolving identity. Apparently, the state's evolving identity doesn't include honoring values of freedom and public service embodied by the state's namesake. There may also be a vote to repeal the Interstate Teacher Compact on Tuesday in the Senate Early Learning and K-12 Education Committee. The compact, with 11 other states, including Oregon and Colorado, allows military spouses and others with teaching certificates in other states to come to Washington. Now, Washington just approved this compact last year, and now the legislature is considering repealing it. This would not only be unfair to qualified military spouses, but would contribute to teaching shortages. Also on Tuesday, the Senate State Government Committee may vote on SB 5382, which would make it more difficult to collect signatures for initiatives and referenda. The clear goal of this bill is to prevent voters from filing initiatives that legislators don't like. The bill claims it makes signatures more secure. But there's no evidence that there is a problem with accurate signatures or that the Secretary of State's office is having a problem. In fact, the bill even says that statistical sampling, which doesn't even check every signature, is still allowed. Finally, on Tuesday, the Senate gets its chance to hear a bill to create a per-mile charge called the road usage charge that would create a 2.6 cent per mile tax. Transportation Director Charles Prestrud from the Washington Policy Center wrote about the road usage charge last week, and you can find his blog at washingtonpolicy.org, where he notes that, quote, in addition to the 2.6 cent per mile tax, the bill also adds a 10% assessment, the proceeds from which would be used for rail, bicycle, pedestrian, and public transportation. So while the state's highway system would continue to be inadequately funded, the revenue from this assessment would be directed to non-highway purposes. Wednesday morning, a truly bad bill will be heard in the Senate Business, Financial Services and Trade Committee. Senate Bill 5754 would create a state bank. Now, the state has studied the idea in the past and rejected it. Small Business Director Mark Harmsworth has a really good analysis of the bill on our blog and points out that the state treasurer wrote previously, quote, that while the state treasurer supports building from Washington's existing structure of banking and does not support public banking because of the higher risk and lower return on investment compared to the current private banking system. You can read Mark's whole blog at washingtonpolicy.org. At the same time on Wednesday, there will be a hearing on Senate Bill 5630, which would extend payments for those who use farm fuels and are taxed extra from the state's CO2 tax. Thursday afternoon, a bill which we helped develop may actually get a vote in Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. Senate Bill 5305 is a bipartisan bill that would create a salmon recovery accelerator to remove regulatory barriers that needlessly waste money on salmon habitat restoration projects. There is no reason for state taxpayer money to be spent going through needless regulation that is just a waste of time and money. Another hearing on an issue to help salmon occurs on Friday when House Joint Memorial 4004 will be heard. The memorial asks the federal government to modify the Marine Mammal Protection Act. Now, a study by the State Academy of Sciences found that seals and sea lions are having significant impact on salmon populations and recommended reducing their population. Now, this can't be done without changes to the federal law. The memorial asks Congress and the President to allow greater flexibility for states and the tribes to use adaptive management tools, including the use of lethal removal for pinniped predators of endangered salmon stocks across the marine shorelines and the Puget Sound. Also on Friday, the Senate Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee will hear Senate Bill 5091, which would decouple Washington from California's vehicle emission standards. Now, Washington is already being hit by these arbitrary and unreasonable requirements that force Washington businesses and residents to purchase electric freight trucks this year and passenger EVs next year. According to the California rules, 35% of new passenger vehicles must be electric next year. We are nowhere close to meeting that goal. Last year, only 22% of new registered vehicles in Washington state were electric. This bill would decouple us and have Washington create its own clean air rules. And finally, if you love Washington state clams, get ready to rumble. On Tuesday at 1:30, the State Senate Government, Tribal Affairs, and Elections Committee will hear two competing bills designating the state clam. Senate Bill 5560 would designate the Pacific razor clam as the state clam, which ChatGPT says is best prepared as crispy fried clam strips. And Senate Bill 5625 would make the Pacific gooey duck the state clam, which ChatGPT recommends gooey duck sashimi with ponzu sauce. The hearing is likely to make last weekend's U.S.-Canada hockey game look tame by comparison. So that's it for this week. To keep up to date, make sure to visit washingtonpolicy.org. Please share this with others to make sure they know what is going on in Olympia and what affects them, and make sure to like our YouTube page.